Hello again, friends. Welcome back to the Daniel-Mabry Project. This episode is with Mark Elliott. He is the owner of H2GO Paddle and Provisions, downtown Monroe, Louisiana. I met Mark earlier this year, and through Killian, I knew that Killian worked at H2GO, and ended up going over there for an open house they had earlier in the spring, I believe, and got to meet Mark and have conversation with him. And oddly enough, I didn't really think about having him on the podcast until about a couple weeks ago. I got to have another conversation with him, and I got to see a little bit more of his personality and realized that he's exactly the person I want to have on this podcast. He's a business owner in the area, and he's promoting the outdoors and promoting the betterment of the environment, and I'm a big promoter of all of those things, so he's a natural fit. Not to mention, he's got a great personality and is a really good and a converser. Really good. I was really happy to sit down with him and learn a little bit more about what drives him and why he got into paddle sports and eventually into business because promoting all of those things. So we talk a little bit about that. We really talk about building the paddleboarding community and the paddle sports community here in North Louisiana and the abundance of resources that we have to our advantage here in North Louisiana. And that's not something that we always think about. I'm really guilty of that, and I talk about it here. We don't have like majestic views and those types of things, but we have some really unique bodies of water and really old bodies of water and a lot of heritage in the area, and a lot of heritage just that run through these bayous that have been here for millions of years. So I just really enjoyed getting to sit down with Mark and hang out with him and pick his brain about business and outdoors, and we ended up going to dinner afterwards and talking even more. So I really am thankful for him and his friendship and his support, and I really hope that maybe we can work together in the future as H2GO continues to expand, and so do I. So be sure to follow H2GO on Facebook, Instagram. They're always posting new products and new content. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Dan.Mabry. If you want to support this podcast, the easiest way to do so is to subscribe to this YouTube channel or subscribe to whatever platform you're currently listening to. If you want to support me financially, I guess we'll go with the free stuff still. The best way to support me is to subscribe and to share. Your share reaches someone else who doesn't know Dan-Mabry or doesn't know the Dan-Mabry Project, and that's another potential person that can become a fan, a subscriber, and we go from there. But if you want to support me financially, you can become a Patreon. I have a Patreon account, and you can, as little as buy me a cup of coffee a month or send me $1 a month if that's what you so choose. I have quit my job and sold my house and pursuing the podcasting and videography life full time now, and plan on traveling a lot soon. And really looking forward to the new year. And this will probably be the last video of 2019. So, did 44 podcasts. So didn't quite hit 52, but really, like I said, really excited for 2020 and a little nervous, but that's life. And this is the way I chose to live it. So I'm really excited to get into it and to have new adventures. So appreciate all of you, all your support this year. I'm forever grateful for all of you. And I'm not going to stop. So I'll see you then. See you on the next one. Thanks, guys. Peace. as raw and real as possible.
No, that's what I mean. We want it filtered. We'd watch cable news.
Yeah, for sure. It's really like, the more that I consume Joe Rogan, really, it's just like you really get to see, like, the head dude is really good at, like, bringing people's personalities out.
Sure.
And
sure.
I was just watching one earlier today, and it's like, of course, the dude was like, really, it was a MMA fighter named Max Holloway, and he was like super pumped to be on there to begin with, and so it was just really good to see them go back and forth and talk names and whatnot.
He was giving back as much as he was putting it out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's nice.
Yeah. All right. Mark Elliott Jr.
That is I.
The owner of H2GO here in Monroe, Louisiana. Mark's been a big supporter of the podcast since we started, and really, I guess, since we got Killian on and
Ethan,
yeah,
Paxton.
for sure, and Paxton, yeah, I forgot.
And we've worked with Asia.
Yeah.
Kind of the alumni of H2GO.
No doubt, and love to see Asia continuing what she's doing.
Absolutely.
And I really can't wait to see what the hell Killian does in about 5 years. But nonetheless, you started H2GO 2015 or so?
End of 2015, my brother and I were going to buy some boat boards. He already had one, and I was going to buy 2 or 3 for my family. He was going to buy a couple more, and another friend of ours was going to buy a couple. So my brother had bought his down at Destin at their corporate store. So like typical research, you go online and look it up, and in this case, I actually called, said, "Hey, boat, looking to buy 5, 6 boards between 2, 3 of us. Where's the nearest place I can go pick these things up?" They said, "Where are you at?" I said, "Monroe, Louisiana." He's like, "Well, we've got a shop down below New Orleans." I was like, "Okay, this is going to complicate things. Getting 3 guys coordinated to go pick up 6, 7 boards, and these were not going to be inflatable boards, so you had some, logistic stuff to deal with." Right. So being the inquisitive guy I am, well, first off, the national sales managers who I actually conversed with, he said, "Well, I grew up and had some family in South Arkansas." And he goes, "I'm kind of familiar with that area." He goes, "Y'all have got some great water up there." He's like, "Really?" He goes, "That's some of the best inland water I can think of to paddle." And, of course, paddle boarding hadn't quite progressed to being known as it even is now in 2015. So somewhat a new thing, I guess, to introduce that concept into North Louisiana.
Right.
So my next question after he kind of interjected that was, well, what do you guys look for? What does it take to become a dealer?
Right.
So he shared with me a few things, and March I think it was like March 16th of 2016, an 18-wheeler backed up to a building I own at another business, and unloaded my first load of boat boards a week after the Great Flood of 2016.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
I needed those boards a week earlier.
For sure.
So that kind of was
we just sort of jumped. Sandbags.
Man, I'm telling you, the stories we could have had. So that really, we kind of jumped into that with just selling boat paddle boards. And then in November of 2017, I'd kind of been kicking around the idea. I was operating the dealership out of, like I say, an existing business, and we have a storefront and warehouse, so it worked okay, but it wasn't very visible at the time and very unknown. I had a friend that had some space in Antique Alley in West Monroe. So reached out, and they were like, "Sure, if you want to do a little pop-up maybe during the holiday." So we jump in there end of October, 1st of November of 17, and open our little shop up on Antique Alley. And, I'll never forget, probably first week, 2 weeks in there, a couple older gentlemen breezed by, had the door kicked open, and, kind of got this, "Well, I never thought I'd see a surfboard in West Monroe." So that kind of made my day.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting people's attention.
Uh-huh.
So we just kind of progressed from that. We decided to keep the shop open after sort of the holiday season, and we're there until October of 2018 when we moved here to downtown Monroe. We needed more space. We've taken on several new brands of kayaks and paddle boards and just really necessitated more room. So in the process of that, we began bringing in other gear, outdoor clothing brands, camping accessories and gear. So we just sort of a natural evolution become sort of like a outdoor shop, but not focused on hunting, which is sort of different for this area.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit previously, but whenever you put it in those terms, that makes a lot more sense. Like,
well, there's no need. We've got some outstanding, shops here that provide wonderful hunting outdoor in the hunting areas. So there's no need really to go compete against them.
Right.
I mean, they're more than adequately, I think, in the market adjusted to everything anybody could ever want or desire. So
yeah.
We were kind of looking for a different sort of experience in the outdoors. There's a lot of people. I'm not from Louisiana. I'm a native Texan. Moved here after I married, but surprisingly, after having been here for 25 plus years, I come across a lot of people that aren't hunters.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that enjoy and have an appetite to get out in nature, and that was sort of the other impetus for doing an outdoor shop.
Yeah.
Is, hey, you just enjoy a leisurely walk or hike through, the woods. You don't have to track down a monster buck.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that.
Yeah. I very much fall into that category. I mean, like, I grew up around hunting, but I never hunted myself. I think hunting is there's two ways you get into hunting. Either your dad did it or like your friends like drag you along or something along those lines. And, I never said no to opportunity, but I never just got a bunch of opportunities either. But, I think part of that is like, if you really want to go, you'll go buy some waders or camo or whatever.
Absolutely.
You'll invest into it a little bit. And I guess I kept waiting for it to be handed to me,
Well, and, another consideration with that is, the economics of it.
Yeah.
It isn't an inexpensive activity.
Yeah.
Whether you have to have a lease or equipment, you can get pretty heavily wrapped up in some dollars.
Yeah.
And not everyone has those disposable dollars to do that. But this gives people, a lot of families can enjoy a lot of what we have to offer. That's a big appeal to me. A lot of ages. My nephew got his first paddle board when he was like 6, 7. Kids paddled literally all over the world. I mean, Caribbean, the East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, the Gulf, Arkansas, Colorado. I mean, starting out 6, 7 years old, my dad's getting close to 80.
Yeah.
Still gets out there and paddles with us. So it's kind of a unique thing that, families all the way from grandparents down to grandkids and everyone in between can fully engage in it.
Right.
I mean, I know there's activities you can do, but some of it's more you're sitting on the sideline watching. This, you're a full participant.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Well, and I think, you can, like you said, that the age difference and the ability for everyone to be able to do it, you can do it at different levels too. Your dad can go slow and easy and take his time, and your nephew can go haul around if he wants
Absolutely. Everyone can kind of go at their own pace, but still enjoy themselves together. And the other component that really is appealing to me personally is the ability to get sort of unplugged.
Definitely.
My other work is really almost a 180 from this. I'm in an office, 8 to 12 hours a day, depending on the day, in front of a computer, on the phone, on my regular phone, my cell phone, email, text, and so to
You
just
do a lot
get
of
out.
marketing stuff?
Yeah, we've got a marketing business, so that you're engaged a lot with people just constantly, and then
Right.
owning the business, then you have some responsibilities and demands on you that you're dealing with accounting, you're dealing with procurement, you're dealing with the air conditioner's out.
Yeah.
Make a decision. Do you buy a new one? Do you patch it? And all that kind of thing. So when I get out on a board or in a kayak and get out, say at Black Bayou Lake, I can just literally leave my phone in the truck and get out there. And even if it's just 30 minutes, it literally is sort of a therapy. And I've actually been accumulating some material from different some medical journals and some different sources that literally show that spending time in nature and outdoors and unplugged is one of the best ways to overcome hypertension, blood pressure, keep yourself in physical condition, all of those things. So, and it doesn't necessarily take a lot.
And it's like that as well.
It doesn't take a lot of time or money. I've made a couple of posts recently about taking advantage of some of our resources here in the North Louisiana area. We have National Wildlife Refuge, Black Bayou Lake. It's literally 10 minutes from where we're sitting, and there's no cost to go out there just to walk around. You can walk. There's improved walking trails. There's sort of a little more natural sort of overland trails, elevated pier. You can go out over the water. You'll see alligators, rabbits, hawks. If you're lucky, you'll see the eagles out there, and it's 100% free.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, people just aren't seemingly aware of those opportunities, and that's why I appreciate you having me on the podcast, so that maybe just a few people pick up on that, then they can share it, and then likewise those folks will share with some others and be able to take advantage. Ruston has Lincoln Parish Park.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the places we tell people, okay, if you want to start out in kayaking, paddle boarding, camping, take it over to Lincoln Parish Park. That way you're literally 5 minutes from Walmart if you've got an emergency.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
or the fast food place or whatever. If everything goes completely south, go to the Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's a small enough place where you can see land at all times, and there's a big mental part of that.
Absolutely,
like comfort
raises people's comfort level.
Yeah,
but it gets them out where once you're out there, you feel like you're hundreds of miles away.
Right. Yeah.
You don't feel like, I'm right in the center of town.
You don't necessarily want to swim back to the shore once you're out in the middle of the lake. So I guess my question, we're talking here, a couple things come to mind. One, why did you make that call initially? What drew you to paddleboarding?
Well, one, I'm a big believer in, if I'm going to sell a product or if I'm going to get involved in an organization, I need to be a participant in it and be fully vested. I don't want to ask people to do something or buy something that I don't do.
Right.
So we kind of got into that culture. I bought some kayaks, and my brother had the paddleboard and some kayaks and canoes. So we saw sort of the joy that our own families got from it. We typically do a big family vacation down to the coast every year, and we take all our stuff and really, became a big part of that trip. But then when I started looking on the business end of it, I saw, there's a big ramp, big growth curve in that sort of area. And I thought, well, why not meld a passion that I have personally with a seemingly good business opportunity, and then combine it with the natural resources we have here, area lakes, the river, the wildlife refuge, the bayou. I mean, literally you can't go 5 minutes almost in any direction. I hit a body of water that's suitable for paddling, fishing. So all of that kind of together just made the call to say, look, let's give this a chance. And we're finally gaining traction. It's taken a few years. I'll be very honest. I thought we'd be further along, and maybe we are now, but I don't know that it's probably more satisfying now because we had to put in some really hard work. That first summer, the guy that I had helping me out, we used to do our demos behind ULM's old alumni center.
Okay.
I remember going out two distinct times. We had demo days scheduled. One, the temperature I think was like 107, and I mean it was hot. And we were, all set up. We had our boards, and we were ready to roll. And here came about 3 or 4 people kind of rolling over that little hill there behind it. And we're like, all right, man, here comes some boarders. So we hit them up and like, hey, you here for the paddleboard demo? And they kind of looked at us like, we're from outer space. And they're like, no, man, we're doing Pokemon. So that was
playing Pokemon Go.
They were chasing a Pokemon. So that was kind of a deflating moment, man, to be out there schlepping all those boards and 100 and something degree heat and not a single person show up. And we just kind of persevered and kept pushing and pushing. And then, now we'll do demo days. Sometimes we'll get 50, 60, 75 people come out.
Yeah. That's
So,
awesome.
The hard work is paid off.
Starting to build a community and
Definitely. Just to interject this, like 3 years ago, there was an event on the river here they called Float the Washita.
Okay.
And Float the Washita is a little different than our typical event because it is just what it says, float. So there's people in kayaks, on paddle boards, and a lot of people in tire inner tubes. The dollar floaties from the convenience store. I think about 150, 175 people showed up the first year. Well, as it's progressed, this last year there were over 400 people.
Wow.
And that's just the ones that signed in to get a discount card to go over to Flying Tiger after the event. So
Okay.
there may have been more than that.
Yeah.
That's just what signed in and did this little safety check.
Okay.
So that shows some growth.
Definitely.
We also participate and are a sponsor of a paddle event. We call it the River Rat Paddle Challenge.
Yeah.
We completed our 4th River Rat Paddle Challenge this year and had the largest number of participants in the history of Louisiana for a paddle event.
Wow.
We had almost 250 folks.
That's awesome.
We grew from 55, 56 the first year to now probably 250 plus.
So are you seeing people that you sold boards to, or are you getting people from
absolutely.
out of town,
I mean,
or?
we probably out of that number, we had 40 folks out there that had bought a board or a kayak from us.
Yeah.
And then we rented several. That's another aspect of our business that we really want to push is the rental.
Mm-hmm.
It allows people to, not to get too far off the subject of the event, but it allows people to see if this is an activity they want to do before they invest. And I'm very cognizant that, it's not an inexpensive sport to get into initially.
Right.
Now, once you've acquired your paddling, equipment, your kayak, your board, the carrying costs are pretty low. There's not a lot of ongoing maintenance, no fees or registrations. Most people let you launch for free, where if a motorboat comes, maybe a $5, $10 launch fee. So, I'm cognizant, though, that for a family to come in here and buy 2, 4 kayaks is a big investment. And I'm not dismissive of that at all. But I think that having the ability to let people experience the activity, the kayaking, paddleboarding, without having to purchase has really proven to be a good concept for us, both just to get people out that only maybe have time to go once or twice a year, and then for people that say, hey, this is something I want to move this up my, this might become number 1, 2, or 3 in my activities.
Right.
Because where we live, like we've already mentioned, hunting, you're competing with golfing, kids travel ball. There's a million different interests out there. Right now, paddling and outdoor activities like number 6 or 7, maybe, in most people's sort of order. Well, as opposed to down on the coast, like in Destin, Panama City Beach, I mean, if you don't have a paddleboard in your truck or on top of your SUV, it's like here not having a Rancher in the back of your pickup, a Honda Rancher in the back of your pickup.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an activity you're going to participate probably 2, 3, 4 times a week.
Right.
And somewhat year-round down there.
Yeah.
So we're trying to migrate people more into the mindset of, hey, this is an activity you can, do year-round. You can, participate in a community of paddlers. We have monthly meetups where just people just generally interested. And it's a very loose and fun group. It's not judgmental. So if you don't show up with the Ferrari of paddle boards, you're not looked down upon.
Right.
I mean, you can bring out, 10-year-old roach board that you've, patched with bubble gum, and we're just like, let's go, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just happy you're there.
For sure.
So that's another thing. I think we're kind of non-threatening. I mean, you look at me. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that you're going to be like, oh, he's going to look down his nose at me. And,
Right.
oh, I'm not good enough to do this. No, we want you to come and be a part of it. And, Killian, is here in the shops, laid back. Same with Paxton, Ethan, all the guys that have helped us out and help us out, continue to help us out, are very, they want you to have fun. They want you to have a good time. And I think that makes a big difference. And that's why we're starting, now that people are aware of it, having some success.
For sure. So I guess, you definitely see yourself like, I guess here in the shop, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like teaching people, like educating people on what's going on here.
Definitely. We have what we call demo days, and then we also offer, if there's a group of folks, we offer where we'll do a guided tour. So in an instance like that, if there's people in your party that aren't experienced, we'll spend some time before we even get in the water and go over some, details, obviously safety, but also techniques, hints, things that they can do to make their experience better, more enjoyable. Get them in the water, do a little, just sort of almost like you'd say a warm up, and make sure everyone's comfortable, everyone's on the same page. And then, Killian, Paxton, or sometimes myself if I'm free, we'll just sort of be there in the background. Just gives people another level of comfort.
Yeah.
Especially, surprisingly, and I just take this for granted because when I hopped over here, moved here from Dallas in '92, shortly after that, my brother and I bought a little tiny little power boat, and then kind of progressed buying bigger boats and had canoes and kayaks. So we've been on the river and just don't think of it as threatening.
Right.
But surprisingly, I'd say 8 out of 10 people that walk into the shop, when they say, "Where do you paddle?" And we're like, "Oh, well, if the water level's decent, we're on the river." And they look at you like, whoa. And I totally understand. If you've never been in a kayak, you've never been on a paddle board, you look at that body of water, and it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, definitely.
And you need to respect it. I don't mean to in any way be dismissive. I mean, it will, bite you if you don't.
Yeah.
You need to be, if you mess with the power and fury of that river when you shouldn't, it'll grab you.
No doubt. I mean, especially, earlier this year it was real bad.
We lost about 2 months of our season, our typical season on the river because of the high water, which didn't work out. I'm kind of one of these guys. I'm like, look, you can always wait for the perfect time.
Yeah. And
then we'll be here a year from now waiting for the perfect time. So we kind of called an audible and took it down to Caney Lake, down to Hooks Marina. And they welcomed us down there, said, yeah, bring the group down. So we met up on a Sunday afternoon. We had almost 75 people come down to paddle.
Golly.
I mean, there were people on the Caney Lake Facebook page posting like, I just saw hundreds of people paddling past our dock. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. And we had people drive up from Alexandria, people from Shreveport, kind of a little meetup point. So it's just about building those relationships and connections to people of sort of like-minded, interest. And it's starting to grow. You can see, not just Monroe or North Louisiana, but just this whole part of the South, a little lagging behind the national trend as far as sort of that outdoor adventure and activity.
Yeah.
But you're beginning to see more and more.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, one, you have some more shops like us that are pushing that.
Yeah.
And then
I guess why do you think we're lagging behind? I guess is.
I don't think it's unique to North Louisiana. I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Yeah.
They're lagging behind. They're not Dallas.
Yeah.
They're not Houston. They're not Austin. I lived in Jackson, Mississippi when I was a kid for 4 years. In some ways, Jackson's lagging behind.
Yeah.
I think it's just different parts of the country have sort of latched onto it more. Colorado, obviously, you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Utah, northern Arizona, obviously California. And then you get back east, you get up into the Smoky Mountains, Asheville.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bucket list place I want to explore. Maybe just kind of get my toes wet in some white water.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but just, something we don't have here.
Definitely.
But the unique thing about where we're located is we're a great jumping off point within about a 3-hour drive that you can hit some, maybe if you extend that just a little further, you can be in the coastal marsh, red fishing.
Yeah.
You go north, you can be in some decent, hiking and climbing territory up in northwest Arkansas.
Right.
Little white water up there. So we're in a pretty good spot, sort of as a launching pad if this is home base.
Yeah. It's interesting that you think of it that way, because I don't necessarily think of it that way. And I guess, you kind of get spoiled if you go live in a bigger city or closer to the mountains or whatever, where it's like right in front of your face. Like there, we can go to that spot. Like that's my theory on the South lagging behind, is that like we can't really see anything here. You just see pine trees, and it's like, all right, oh yeah, there's the river. Like,
it's obscured by the view is obscured by the landscape.
Whenever I lived in Colorado, like you're just like inspired every day. Like you look out and see that like there's literally something way bigger than you, and like it's just this vast wilderness that's been unconquered.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
it's a cool place to be.
Yeah.
Same thing. Maybe if you live down on the Gulf, you look out there every morning, see the Gulf, hear those waves crashing in.
Yeah.
See that sunset peaking.
Exactly.
We love to get up when we're down there. An Elliott vacation is sort of like full throttle.
Okay.
We're up before dawn, and we usually don't shut it down until after dark.
Okay.
And I don't mean that like partying. I mean we're paddling, we're fishing, we're exploring. I mean, my brother, he'll have an itinerary. Like, all right, it's 7, man. We got to be launched. We got to be out there. We got to be hitting this because we got to be back off the water by 1, because then we're going to go 40 miles up to this little spring I found. And we're big on trying to engage with locals.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be, again, I don't want people to get the wrong idea that I'm too good to do the touristy things. But I've always found anywhere I've ever traveled, if you can get off the beaten path, and really you'll get the authentic, the real people from wherever it is you're at.
Mm-hmm.
We found some really cool places down in the Panhandle in Florida that they're basically uninhabited at high season. And I think they're just simply because people don't know about them. They're off the beaten path.
Yeah.
But you befriend and kind of are cool with some of the local people, and you take care of their stuff. You don't trash their grounds. You don't cause a ruckus when you come rolling in. They're cool with you being there. They're pretty inviting. But you find these sort of little out of way places, and to me that's sort of I like finding the local flavor of any area I visit, whether it's the mountains or the Gulf or overseas, wherever you're at.
Yeah.
I just sort of my thing I like to do.
Yeah.
I don't believe in eating at a restaurant that I've ever seen before.
Okay. That's a great attitude
That's
to
kind
have.
of a rule in our family.
That's a good one to have. I think I need to adopt that myself, honestly.
Well, I mean, look.
Because I get stuck with that. Like, I get stuck in, like, eating at the same, getting Chick-fil-A every day or whatever,
And they're good. They're consistent, fast service, all that. But, I'm like willing to take that risk for that horrible meal to get the 10 great ones that no one else is going to get. And even when I travel down to New Orleans, I've been lucky that through some family to be introduced to some places, and I know they're local because every time I've been in there, I've met or seen someone who's from New Orleans that I've done business with, and that's where they're eating on Friday night.
Nice.
And when the lady, when the 85-year-old lady whose caretaker wheels her up to the table and they just bring her gumbo and there's no menu, you're in the right place.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's some good things going on there for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so I want to jump back a little bit here. You mentioned like basically 2017 you didn't have a spot. You didn't have a location, I guess.
Right.
Were you selling? Were you actively selling? Were you
yeah,
trying
we
to
were
promote
still
the brand?
Yeah,
or?
we were still selling.
Did the H2GO exist at that point?
Well, that's what we branded ourselves as H2GO from the start.
Okay.
We just didn't have, a dedicated retail store.
Right.
But we were selling out of our other business location, which is more of an office and warehousing kind of configuration.
So was that just like a word of mouth deal, or were you?
It was, and then of course that was sort of earlier in the social media game when I don't even think we had an Instagram account. We didn't have a real website, which we have both of those now and are very useful. We didn't engage in any kind of Google ads, anything like that, or SEO, or any of those kind of things that help. The other thing is, our brands now are very engaged in pushing people to us.
Okay.
So if you go to the boat website, it'll say, hey, within 15 miles, 30 miles, we've got a stocking dealer that carries our full line. They've been at it for a few years. They do rentals, they do demos. So that helps, make people aware.
Definitely.
But, getting into the retail game is, that's a really whole different thing. And obviously we get into a whole conversation about not just outdoor gear, but brick and mortar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hand-to-hand combat. I mean, all you got to do is go to any mall, not just the Pecan Land Mall in Monroe, but, I mean, a third of the spaces are empty.
Right.
And it's not going to get – I don't mean to be – I'm generally the most optimistic you'll find, but – people are going to have to reconfigure and reposition. It's just the economic model doesn't make sense anymore.
You think that's a brick and mortar problem, or you think that's like a strip mall, like the architecture of it all? Like, is it, because I know a guy from high school who's an architect, and he always is complaining about strip malls and everything looking the same, and just like businesses absolutely failing inside of them.
Well, you can look at the successful retail areas across the country are what they call, either lifestyle centers, or they're conceptualized to look like, whether it's, when you're in Las Vegas, it may look like you're in Italy in a certain area of town, or you go to another part and it looks like New York.
Right. I'm following you.
But the themed, I guess you might say, the themed retail. But yeah, I think people sort of have gotten away from just this, going into this gigantic four walls of a mall and just sort of mindlessly walking and not having any engagement, or their senses sort of engaged. I mean, especially if you're just there to shop.
Right.
Maybe one thing, if you know what you want and you're just ducking in and like, hey, I want that, grab it, and you go. There's just not enough of those people to sustain the economic model, I think, of the mall, brick and mortar. And like I say, the strip center, it's just not a real exciting outing.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have a much more personal experience if you come into H2GO and buy a kayak compared to if you go to Dick's and buy a kayak.
Well, we can tell you, hey, the water's good to paddle at this location, or it's too low at this location to really – you're going to be dragging your kayak more than you're going to be paddling.
Right.
Or, hey, the water's up high, and unless you're experienced, you don't need to be out on the river. Or, hey, we've got a group getting together next week. In fact, I've had 2 or 3 people come in here, groups of people come in. They've bought kayaks at Dick's or wherever it might have been. And I'm like, look, and they're like, where should we go paddle? I'm like, we're paddling next week. Come and go with us.
Yeah.
They didn't buy a boat from us, but look, we want them to be just part of the whole community. I really envision at some point our shop being sort of a clearinghouse, if you will, for people just to gather, a gathering space for outdoor-minded people, and whether it's hiking, camping, paddling, whatever their interest might be, and they can just kind of come and hang out with other people like-minded. And then that's just creates a great environment for people to learn in.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's a way people can learn about interest areas.
You've already announced that you guys are moving spaces. And
we are.
That
we are.
Seems like that may be more of an opportunity to do all that.
We are. We're going to move to a location where our other business is. We're going to reconfigure a little over 3,000 square feet. So we'll have.
How big is this location?
Floor space, we're probably 1,200.
Okay.
Something like that. So about 3 times the amount of space, which will really allow us to have some events where if we want to do an outdoor movie screening, if we want to invite in a guest speaker.
Right.
We've already got a couple.
That's where my mind goes. Is like, you teach a class or whatever. And
we already have one queued up for camping. And we're just, again, some of this stuff seems basic, and I have to sort of throttle myself back. Yeah. I'm willing to say, look, I'll grab a backpack and a hammock and hop on my paddle board and just head down the river, and 4 days later someone pick me up.
Yeah.
But if you've never done it, that's not realistic.
Right.
And I'm kind of having to check myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with us being able to offer, like you said, bring in some people that have extensive experience in camping, and inviting, say, young families and young people that have never experienced that, and literally just saying, hey, going all the way from, like we talked earlier, start at a local accessible park before you go up into the Ouachita Mountains, and you're 45 minutes away from everyone with no cell phone service. Let's, take some steps and build their confidence and their skill set, and, talk about what's essential, what's not, what do you want to accomplish on your, camping expedition, if you will.
Yeah.
But offers, like you say, some classes and things like that so that people can gain some real knowledge and skills to put into place when they want to go and do an outdoor event or an outing.
Yeah. And obviously you've worked some other products into the store outside of the boat and kayak and paddleboard, but I would guess moving into a larger space will open that up a little bit more.
We're definitely looking, especially into some more of the, hiking, backpacking, outdoor gear that's not in the market currently. I think that there's an opening there for someone to fill a void. Obviously, we just talked about the brick and mortar situation with the online sales. There's a balance there between, making it profitable and sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there is, we have people coming in asking about it. We're going to actually implement a new rental program for camping gear. So you can come in and we'll have I call it a day outing pack, where you get a couple of hammocks, a soft side cooler, some trekking poles, and we'll give you a guide to say, hey, if you've got, all day long, we'll send you over to Mount Magazine. You can summit the highest point in all of Louisiana.
Yeah.
All 535 feet. But it's actually, we've done that twice as a group. And it's actually not a bad little day, considering it's 45 minutes from Monroe.
Right.
It's free.
Yeah.
There's no charge. But if you wanted to trek up the mountain there and sling your hammock and hang out and spend an afternoon in a really peaceful, beautiful setting, hey, $35 is get you all the gear you need. You don't have to commit to buying it. If you want to ramp it up, you want to do an overnight, we'll have some tents, sleeping bags, rotomolded coolers. So again, you don't have to make that investment initially of several $100s. Even I priced it out at Walmart, and you're looking at $200 to $400 for very basic equipment.
Right, for equipment.
And that's a big, again,
may break.
Yeah, it may or may not survive the weekend.
Yeah.
But again, I realize that's a lot of money to a lot of families, and if it's your thing, that's not a problem. But to just take a flyer on, $400, to say, hey, I don't know if my kids are gonna, are they gonna hang out all night, or is this gonna get rocky? And
right. Yeah.
Are we gonna be packing in the car and
Yeah, getting out of here at 2:00 in the morning because nobody will go to sleep.
But yeah, I want to, explore more and more of that sort of, round out our complete experience, because not everyone's going to be drawn to paddling. Likewise, not everyone's going to be drawn to backpacking, camping, hiking. But sort of the blend of all of that together, I think, will make us a well-rounded store.
Yeah.
And resource.
So you're a marketing guy. I was a marketing major. I like to think about marketing. Does it concern you at all that the name H2GO is it's right there on the border, it's kind of, go is go outside, that whole deal.
Right.
But it's if you just see H2GO, you don't necessarily think backpacking initially.
Well, we've kind of started tagging H2GO paddle and provisions just to incorporate a little, but it is it's a fair question, and one that I've thought about quite a bit, actually, of should we rebrand the entire shop. I struggle with that because we put a lot into building that name and brand, and I don't want to lose that. But likewise, if it's not reflective of what we're doing, and as we've had to make moves to facilitate our growth, maybe that's the next evolution is, hey, we're going to kind of have a rebranding. We'll still have H2GO as a sub brand for the water sports.
Yeah.
and have another sort of more general sort of outdoor identity for the shop.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I guess you have a large space like you're talking about. You'll be able to facilitate that.
Yeah, but I mean, we've got 3,000 feet. It'll just be like showroom. Another almost 4,000 feet that we can draw from as we need. Some of it's office and, break rooms and restrooms and storage and so forth. But, that'll give us a little growing room.
Definitely.
So that we can, as time goes on and things progress, we can. The good news is some of that camping and hiking doesn't take nearly the space that it does for kayaks. You can't find a product that takes up much more space in a retail sense. Maybe furniture.
Yeah.
That may be the only comparison.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's not a lot. We can, I think, pack a lot into that space and still offer a really complete, full line of gear that people can really outfit themselves for a full experience outdoors. And we're committed to, learning from our suppliers, attending, outdoor retailer, ICAST, all these trade shows where, you go there to buy, but you also get a lot of educational opportunities from people that, been doing this much longer than I have. And I'm kind of like a sponge. I just am peppering people with questions. They're probably like, man, are you going to just buy something or, go on? But I like to kind of know the genesis behind things because to me, that's sort of the interest.
Yeah.
And that may just be the way my mind works, but I like the story of a lot of the brands that we carry and the reason we carry them. I'm just looking over here at Astral Shoes. I bought a pair of Astral Shoes about 5 years ago. So a couple of years before we began the shop, and they're water and kind of off-road traction shoes, water shoes. So when we said, hey, there's a need for us to offer that in our shop, that was naturally the brand I turned to because I had a good experience with them. Well, their next evolution has been to introduce a whole line of shoes made from hemp. And the whole emphasis behind that is the environmental impact from growing hemp is much, much less than other natural fibers.
Right.
It's basically impervious to insects. It takes 1/20th as much water as cotton to grow.
Yeah.
The tensile strength is actually stronger. I don't want this to be a commercial for hemp shoes, but it's just an interesting thing that we can say, hey, look, here's something that performs actually better than probably what your synthetic or cotton material, and it's a whole lot better for the environment. And we sell a brand of sunshades called Nectar, and their whole business is built around giving back to repopulate bees. I'm no expert on bees, but there is a dearth of the bee population.
Right.
And it'll, at some point, be significant when it starts to impact, obviously, food supply, pollination of plants, trees, etc. And they're focused on, giving back. We just picked up another new brand out of South Carolina, Toadfish. For every product they sell, they plant 10 square feet of oyster beds. So we've really kind of tried to engage with some brands that are, giving back to the public space and trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
While improving your experience and the outdoors and as well.
I guess I'm trying to figure out how to word this. So like you at some point, I guess you have to like cut off the number of brands that you represent or the number of products that you represent. At some point, like you have to like say, this is my love for the outdoors is going over than my business right now. Like, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had to,
Oh yeah, I
say, hey, Mark, this is badass, but you probably shouldn't buy it.
My wife has to every night I come in with like, hey, look at this thing I found, or hey, this rep called me, and she just kind of looks at me like, where are you going to put it, and who is going to buy it?
Yeah,
yeah, that's I'm not a good person to turn loose at a trade show, an industry trade show,
right.
Dude, I'd fill up a Walmart. I'd make REI look like a 7-Eleven if I were the buyer.
Yeah. Well, and I guess what keeps you in check with that?
Well, obviously, monetarily.
Right.
That's a big constraint, and also just being able to be fair to the brand. I really feel, again, a responsibility that if we're going to carry a brand, that we completely, fully engage and give it our full attention and put it forward, rather than, just having 8 or 10 brands and just kind of throw them out there and hope they do well. We probably have passed on a couple that monetarily would have been better for us. But I really think that in the end, and it's proven itself that as time has gone on, that as people have just become accustomed to it and aware of it, it's done really well for us.
Yeah.
And, we don't have when we started, we didn't have a single brand that was available for probably, you had gone to Dallas, for sure, Jackson, Baton Rouge to even seen it.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose because I didn't want to overlap. I said, there's just not really a need for, a fourth retailer of brand P.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. Awesome people, even better company and people. But
are you referencing coolers in that in that sense?
Well, it's kind of funny that when we first started, Boat sold Yeti coolers, and so they were available through the dealer network. And of course, we bought them and sold them. And Corey, the owner of Boat, was at a trade show with Troy Landry from the Swamp People.
Yeah.
And the guys from Yeti out of Austin. And they were all at, an industry show. And Troy kept calling the cooler a Kula, with his accent. So Corey from Boat is telling the guys from Yeti, like, y'all need to make one and call it the Kula, And they're like, I don't know. And of course, obviously Yeti's had unbelievable success.
Right.
So he goes, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. Of course, Boat had never made a rotor molded product ever. They had epoxy boards, inflatables, never anything rotor molded. A year and a half later, he comes out with the round Kula. So, that kind of ended the Yeti relationship. Not necessarily on really bad blood, because, like I say, thereby, in comparison to what Yeti was doing, is fairly insignificant.
Right, yeah.
But it's been a good
share
product.
There is quite different.
Yeah. So, we've kind of gone that route with them just because it's a sister company to Boat, and it actually works he designed it where it works specifically well with paddle boards. Just has a one-handed latch opening, and put a rod in it it has a built-in rod holder in the top of it. And, like I say, I'm always trying to learn. One of the main reasons they made it round, in addition to the fact that you can put more cans in a round because of the cylindrical shape of it.
Okay.
A lot of these guys on the coast use these things for bait buckets. So they use little cast nets, and because you have the best success catching fish if you're using fish that they're chasing naturally in the spot you're fishing. Well, you're probably too young to remember this, but way back when you go get a minnow bucket, they were all that galvanized, but they were round buckets.
Okay.
And according to them and some other people I've talked to, the reason they're round, fish naturally swim in a circular motion. So if you dump them into a square or rectangular shape, they get erratic. It stresses them, and they'll hit the walls and they'll eventually die and kill themselves.
Wow.
So there's a lot of useless information for you, but
that's interesting, though. It makes sense that you want to keep your bait alive.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. So anyways, we, like you say, there's just a lot of brands like that you kind of, we picked up on Ice Mule. It's a soft-sided only cooler company. At the time, no one had it for a pretty good distance around. It works very well with our product because it's pliable. You can put it underneath seats, into hatches. They also act as dry bags. So, obviously, when you're in the water all the time, you got a camera gear, something like that. And they float, so you don't have to worry about it. If it goes overboard, you can just retrieve it. So we're always kind of looking for things that are synergistic from one brand to the other. That are sort of complementary. Probably some of the brands are, a little more. I've gone with brands that are sort of more pushing the boundaries in their respective fields. I like innovation, and I like seeing things that are. Again, it may not have necessarily been the best immediate profitability wise, but as people come to see it and appreciate it, it's now starting to take hold, and people I think are seeing the value in it.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, like you talk about the hemp shoes. Like, I didn't know anything about that, and so the minute that somebody finds out about it, it's a little more sellable. It's a little more like, oh, okay, I do want to support that. But I just see so much like education that you have to do in your market.
It is. I mean, we've plowed. I kid people all the time. Like, every bit of ground we've cultivated has been new ground.
Yeah.
We've kind of had to plow new ground, but in a way, I enjoy that. I mean, that's sort of my natural thing. Is I like being a person that can facilitate, even if it's not myself, but our shop or the people we bring in, to help just make people aware and educate and bring some new things to light. And to me, it's satisfying seeing that. Even, I don't want the credit for it, but I like seeing it happen.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, I think the more people get outside, the more you help people get outside, the more we care about the environment, the more we're willing to pick up the trash or use the hemp shoe instead of the cotton shoe, and just make the world a better place in general.
Well, and from another slant, I also saw this as a way that could have some positive economic impact on North Louisiana.
Yeah.
I firmly feel that we're sitting on a gold mine of ecotourism, some people term it, where people will make this a destination to come because of, we've got Bayou Bartholomew, 20-something miles north of us, is the longest running bayou in the United States.
Okay.
There's a stand of old growth cypress trees up at Sheminahaw Park, north of Bastrop. Some of the largest, native virgin cypress stand in the world. There's actually a tree, it's called the castle tree, that you can fit a kayak inside the base of it, the hollowed out base.
Wow.
And there's literally people coming here to go and see that.
Yeah.
From other parts of the country.
Yeah.
I've had, best story I can share, I had a guy contact me they contacted the Lieutenant Governor's office because they're over tourism. They connected me to this gentleman from Canada, from Ottawa. So I'm back and forth emailing with him. And so it makes the arrangements. He wants to rent a kayak for he and his wife, girlfriend, come, and they want to take it out for a several-day expedition. I'm like, hey, yeah, absolutely. Fly into New Orleans, spent the night there, and come up to Monroe in the smallest car I've ever seen in my life. I think it was at least as small as a smart car. And they had rented this 13.5-foot tandem kayak from me. So I just kind of looked at it like, all right, we're going to make this work.
Yeah.
Well, to make another little complication, they speak French first. They did speak some English, but that's not their primary first language. So some people may say I don't speak English first. I don't know, but that's another whole story. My wife's an English teacher. That's why it's funny. But all that being said, so we get them outfitted, and I'm like, well, look, let me have your cell phone number, and here's mine, and here's the, I wrote down a couple sort of people they could contact. He's like, oh, well, we don't have a cell phone. We're not taking cell phone with us. And I'm like, okay, I don't care about the plastic boat. That can be replaced, but man, I just don't want this on my conscience.
Right.
But I, went over. I mean, I set both of them down for probably 30 minutes and just sort of went over because it was in like February. They caught a nice window of weather, so it wasn't terribly cold. But I just wanted to make absolutely sure they understood because they were going to just bare bone up the Ouachita and the Bayou Bartholomew. So I'm like, there's snakes, alligators, possibly bears, bobcats, coyotes, on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the most dangerous person of all, a human from Union Parish or Morehouse Parish that thinks you're on their property.
Yeah.
But all that being said, come to find out they had actually done some traveled throughout the world doing some expedition-type travel. So they were not just greenhorns.
Right.
They took off, and sure enough, man, about 4 or 5 days later, whenever it was, man, they rolled back up, and they were fine and just had the trip of a lifetime.
Grinning ear to ear.
But, to think that someone sought out Monroe, North Louisiana from Canada, and they chose that they specifically wanted to come here to go out and paddle and just kind of absorbed nature. I thought that was kind of a neat thing. It spoke well that we've got something to offer here. We just need to package it and present it, and I think we can have a really good economic boost from it.
For sure.
Not just the shop, but just the general economy.
Yeah. And, I mean, is there a way? I mean, it's just going to have to be a slow grind. Is there a way?
It is. I mean, we're making some progress, and the local CVB has really engaged to help promote and they see, because they're charged with the mission of people putting bodies in beds and people in restaurants.
Yeah,
that's their sort of thing, and so they see where hey, this could add to quickly, start filling up some hotel rooms, some restaurants, some shops. So they're fully engaged and been super supportive. Mayor Stacy Mitchell in West Monroe has recently, they've gotten a grant to do some redevelopment of their downtown over there where we were formerly located. And graciously, even though we're not located there in West Monroe, she's asked us to come to some planning meetings and things to get some input about how the recreation on the river could benefit them. And so, they have a very engaged, I guess, eye on that. So it's beginning to, I believe, take place. I think the lieutenant governor has really done a wonderful job with a campaign of Feed Your Soul. I don't know if you've seen that hashtag. He self-admittedly said, look, our department has comparatively, it's like peanuts compared to even like Visit Arkansas. I mean, it's like $600,000 a year compared to like $8 million or something. I mean, not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
So to his credit and to his team's credit, they've come up with this clever Feed Your Soul. I mean, we're known for food in Louisiana. It speaks to sort of your, most sort of inner being, your soul. It's been a tremendous success, garnered tremendous amount of attention. And I think he fully sees that, and I don't want to get into a big political debate about, coal and oil, but at some point that can't be the only driving force. It can still be a driving force, but at some point that's going to go away, whether you believe in it, you don't believe in it, you want it, you don't want it. I mean, it's just the world.
Well, I think we can all agree a more diverse economy is a better economy.
Absolutely. So you're not, at the whims of the highs and the lows.
Right.
And we're well positioned. We've had some visitors in from, surprisingly, like the Dallas area. And my joke is, because that's where I moved from immediately prior to moving to Monroe. My sister lives in Fort Worth. That there's no one in Dallas, Fort Worth that's from Texas.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 people are from Minnesota, Kansas City, New York, North Carolina, you name the state. They have a lot of curiosity about Louisiana. We have one of the most unique heritages, cultures, topographies of any state.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to capitalize on that, because there's a lot of people sitting, just 3, 4, 5 hours away that very easily come spend a weekend here and drop some substantial dollars in. Hey, what do y'all have over here? I want to check it out.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that could be a very big boost for Louisiana as a whole, but especially North Louisiana. We're located on I-20. We have a very serviceable airport for people coming further away. And we need to capitalize on those assets we already have, rather than maybe dwell on the things we don't. I, as much as anyone, would love if we had a $200 million arena and an A-list act 3 times a week and all. But being realistic, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so this question keeps plaguing me because it keeps coming and going. You mentioned that paddleboarding and that there's kind of a year-round thing, or you can make it a year-round thing. Do you or have you or heard of any run-ins with duck hunters or that kind of deal? I mean, I realize it's kind of more of a middle-of-the-day thing compared to early morning thing, but
yeah, I've personally never had any conflict. I don't know of anyone who has.
I just think about bayous and
sure. And in fact, I mean, we have a few models that we specifically sell for duck hunting.
Okay.
Actually, would say that's probably one of the top 2 or 3 assets of that particular watercraft.
Yeah.
And recently, in the last 2 years, Russell Sage has closed the Green Tree Reservoir to any boat motors. You know, they had a 10 horsepower limit.
Okay.
And in the last season and then this season, it's no longer you can have any motor.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, as a guy that's hunted out there quite a bit, you know, when you wade in water, you know, chest deep, carrying, you know, your shotgun, your blind bag, and some decoys, and you've got to walk quarter to a half mile, it's a pretty arduous
that's not
ordeal.
Fun. Yeah.
Well, if I can put you on one of our boards that's sort of specifically made, even if you're just push pulling yourself, you'll make 10 times the amount of time with 1/100th the energy.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, it's sort of like using the tool and educating people like, oh, I don't want to well, look, you know, you can get to that spot that's out, you know, a mile and a half away that, frankly, no one else is gonna walk that far.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we haven't had any conflict as far as, you know, fishermen. You know, that's the other aspect we hadn't even talked about. Kayak fishing is one of the biggest, fastest growing sports in the world. The National Kayak Fishing Tournament was held 2 years ago in Shreveport, Bossier.
Okay.
They had 600 participants. It's a 4-day event, 600 participants. So that's, you know, how many ever room stays at, and calculate that out. And then, of course, the whole industry for that comes.
Right.
So every boat manufacturer, every rod and reel manufacturer, lure, you know, life vest, shoe manufacturer, raincoat manufacturer, you just name it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything possibly related, since they're factory people and they set up there. They were at the racetrack hotel there.
Oh, yeah.
Had the big ballroom all set up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, you're talking about a pretty big impact. The dude that won walked away with $80,000 cash.
Wow.
So it's pretty big money. I mean,
Yeah.
it's serious money to be had in kayak fishing.
Yeah. Well, obviously, so I don't think the camera can see it, but this kayak or this paddleboard, I guess you could say, has a 2.5 horse motor on it.
Right.
I guess that's used for the marsh, probably.
You can definitely use it on the marsh. You can use it, you know, on the river here. And the whole premise is it just gets you further faster.
Yeah.
The last, say, half mile, quarter mile, cut the motor, pop it up, paddle in, floats in 3 inches of water, so you can get into those recessed areas you can't get in a big center console boat.
Yeah.
One of the big trends actually down on the coast is what they call ferrying or porting. So you go out in like a 35-foot, 40-foot center console, and they'll throw 2 or 3 boards on there. They'll take you until it gets 3-4 feet deep, anchor, then you hop on your board, and then you'll go the last half mile to your spot.
That's cool.
Because they just can't get in there with those big boats. They get those things beached. Then
right.
It's, you know.
And that's generally like a not a blow-up board that we're talking about.
Well, I mean, they can be what we call a rigid board, or it can be an inflatable, either one. It really doesn't matter. It just kind of depends on the outfitter and what they're, you know, what kind of gear they're running. You know, with the inflatable boards, you know, another quick little interjection about those things, just you can take them anywhere.
Well, I saw you took it to Hawaii with you this year.
I did. My sister got married in Hawaii. Packed that thing in this little carry bag, checked it as a bag at the Monroe airport. No oversized bag fee, anything. Stuffed a couple of Go hammocks in there, an ice mule cooler, some other gear, and picked that thing up. Man, I pumped it up the first day we got there. Paddled every day I was there.
That's awesome.
Rolled it up, brought it back home.
Dusted the sand off, rolled it, came back home. So is that, you have, what kind of pump are you pumping that up with?
It's just a little, here we go. It's a little manual, high volume, low pressure pump.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Makes it easy?
Yeah, it was 7-10 minutes of just fairly steady but easy pumping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I guess we can wrap it up there.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I guess tell everybody where to find you. What's the plans for next year, maybe?
Well, we're kind of kicking off the year big, so we're moving to our new spot, 2814 DeSoto Street. So if you know where Books A Million in Monroe, we're just a couple blocks from Books A Million, up the road on Lammy Lane. And then New Year's Day, this will be our 3rd year. We do what we call a New Year's Day hike, first day hike.
All right.
And I really like this year's hike. We've done Mount Driscoll. We did the waterfalls down at Sicily Island last year, and this year we're doing Caney Lake, which is different from Caney Reservoir. Caney Lake is in Minden, Louisiana, and there's about a 6-mile loop around the little lake, and nice little overland trail. You can bike ride, you can hike it. So we're going to meet up and go over and do that New Year's Day. So anyone that, if you see this before, I don't know if it'll air before
we're going to come out just before this. So this will be perfect.
Yeah, get in touch with us, and we'd love to have you. There's no cost other than, I think there's a $5 per car fee it's part of the Kisatchie National Forest.
Okay.
So again, kind of one of those deals where low cost for, full day of sort of getting out there. We're going to probably, if the weather's decent, we'll bring some kayaks and stuff, and after the hike, paddle there in the little lake, and then from there we'll just get kicked off. We'll be at the boat show at the Monroe Civic Center into January. So that'll be introducing some of the new 2020 models and getting things going, and then really after that it gets ramped up pretty quick. I mean, February is a good month to get your. I'm a big proponent of get your gear before you need it.
Right.
Same thing if you're going on vacation or whatever, get provisioned and geared up so you don't spend your time in a store. Be out there, like I'm telling you, the full throttle.
Yeah, yeah.
But February is a good time. Kind of come in, get your stuff all together. So hopefully be a big month for us. And then March, depending on weather, I mean, we'll start doing some group paddles, some group hikes, and our plan this year is to do every month one group paddle and one group hike. That's sort of our goal for next year.
Do you see any more long distance stuff in the future?
Yeah,
do you have any goals with that?
Yeah,
kind of stuff?
we did a meetup, we called it, down in Panama City Beach a couple years ago, and had a couple people that were able to make it. It's a little bit of a stretch. It's hard when you're doing family vacations like that. So I really think this year our preliminary plan is we want to go up to, my wife and youngest daughter and I just took a quick jaunt up to Lake Catherine State Park, which is just outside of Hot Spring.
Okay.
3-hour drive, easy 3-hour drive from Monroe, 2.5 from Ruston. And I think it might be an ideal place for us to have sort of an all-encompassing group meetup. They have, obviously, tent sites, RV sites, cabins. They even have a yurt.
Oh,
Anybody
wow.
want to check out a yurt? They've got a yurt. But it has some really nice, what I would call beginner hiking trails that still offer some really cool scenery and topography.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a more advanced trail that some guys like yourself, Killian, would really like to do.
Yeah.
And then it's a perfect lake for paddling. So we can kind of combine camping, the hiking, maybe in some light rock crawling, and paddling all in one trip. And then everyone could just sort of wherever you're at on that scale of where your comfort level is, you can rent a cabin, bring your RV, bring your tent, bring your hammock, rent the yurt.
Yeah.
So whatever your economic or your skill level or equipment level is, I think there's something for everyone. It's close. Maybe we do meet up on Friday and then have sort of not really a set itinerary so much as just to say, hey, at this time a group of us are going to do this. If you want to join in,
yeah. I guess what I'm thinking about is more go down the Ouachita, go down the Mississippi, multiple day type thing.
Yeah. Actually, a couple folks that are, in the River Rat group, as we call it, there's been several of them want to do a little trip down the Tensas.
Okay.
Which is even a little more, how do you want to put it, undeveloped in the Ouachita. I mean, you're going to get into some stretches there where you may not see any, structures or anything for miles.
Yeah.
So that's another one
that's kind of what you're seeking out there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole purpose.
I guess some people are.
No, that would be another great trip. One of the guys in the group, in a small limited group, just did a trip from near St. Joseph down to Natchez on the Mississippi last month. Wow. Now that caveat is for very experienced paddlers with some sort of specialized craft. That's not, that's not a first time, trip.
Right.
But we can connect you with people like that. That's the whole thing. Just think of us as a clearinghouse if you do have that ability, that equipment, and you just maybe don't know who to get connected with, we can point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
If you're a rock climber, if you enjoy rock climbing, I mean, we've got a half dozen what I call friends at the shop. They're regular customers, friends, hang out. They go to Jackson, to Tyler, to Shreveport all the time. They'd love to have someone ride along, to go and climb.
For sure.
So I think that's maybe the biggest point to get across is just think of us as sort of a resource.
Yeah.
A clearinghouse for information. And obviously when you need gear, we want to provide it, but really just being that connector is, I think, hopefully what'll sort of pull all this together.
Yeah, man, that's a great way to build a relationship and hopefully get a paying customer out
Absolutely.
of it.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. I've been observing what you've been doing here for a while now, and always been supportive of it. And
well, we appreciate it.
I appreciate you bringing some outdoor culture, a little more outdoor culture to the area, and I mean, you really are trying to build a community and make this place a little bit better and a little more.
Well,
fun.
We're representing here.
Yeah, for sure.
We're representing. So.
Well, so everybody make sure to go follow H2GO on Instagram and Facebook and keep up with them there, and be sure to come by the new store.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be having a kickoff once we get all settled in, and we've got a couple of really, I won't spoil it, but a couple of really cool, I think, new features that people kind of might enjoy, kind of latch on to, be something kind of iconic maybe for at least our area on our scale.
Yeah.
So
sweet.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I know I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully we can catch up with you some other time.
You bet, man.
Awesome.
Bet.
Thank you.